There's a special kind of satisfaction in watching someone who always made you feel small suddenly shrink before your eyes. For me, that moment arrived when my toxic cousin Emily, mid-rant, realized I owned the very hotel she was trying to kick me out of. It's wild, you know? Emily and we hadn't really spoken in almost a decade. The last time, I was barely making ends meet, busting my butt just to survive, and she was practically shoving her latest shopping spree in my face. She always had this uncanny ability to make me feel like I was nothing, like I didn't even deserve to be in the same family as her. But life has a funny way of flipping the script on you. My name's Jake, and I'm 32 now. 10 years ago, I was seriously scraping by. I worked double shifts, sometimes even triple, at this dingy motel, just dreaming of something more, something bigger. And my extended family, bless their hearts, they pretty much treated me like a lost cause, a total failure. Especially Emily. She was the golden child, showered with praise for doing, well, pretty much nothing, while I was constantly reminded of every single setback. It hurt deeply. My parents, they passed away when I was in my early 20s. Just like that, my safety net was gone. Meanwhile, Emily, her parents, my aunt and uncle, lavished her with everything: expensive gifts, fancy vacations, whatever her heart desired. I had no handouts, no shortcuts, just pure, unadulterated grit. I saved every single penny. I worked hours that would make most people's eyes water. And I absorbed everything I could about the hospitality industry. Slowly, almost painstakingly, I clawed my way up. I took calculated risks, invested in myself, and eventually, against every single odd you could imagine, I managed to buy my own small, but let me tell you, elegant hotel. It wasn't some grand 5-star resort, not yet, but it was mine. Every brick, every beam, every piece of furniture. I built it from the ground up, transforming it into this really respected venue for weddings, parties, and high-end events. It was my pride and joy. Emily, of course, had no idea. Absolutely none. As far as she knew, I'd probably just faded into obscurity, another distant relative she didn't even need to spare a thought for. That is, until the night of her extravagant birthday party. You guessed it. It was hosted at my hotel. It was a crazy busy evening. My staff, they were absolute pros, handling everything seamlessly. I was just overseeing the final touches, making sure everything was perfect, when my eyes caught a familiar name on the event list. Emily. My gut clenched, a familiar knot of dread and anticipation tightening. I hadn't seen her in years, and a tiny part of me, a foolish part maybe, wondered if she'd changed. Maybe she'd finally outgrown her entitled ways. Maybe time had softened her arrogance. Then I saw her. She walked through the grand entrance, and just like that, I knew. Nothing had changed. Not a single thing. Emily strutted in like she owned the place, draped in designer everything, her voice loud, carrying right over the soft background music as she barked orders at my staff. She barely even acknowledged anyone she considered beneath her. My employees, bless their patient souls, they kept shooting me these nervous glances as she snapped at them for the tiniest, most insignificant things. I had planned to stay hidden, just observe from a distance. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. I was standing near the bar, trying to look inconspicuous, when Emily spotted me. She did a double take, her eyes narrowing in disbelief. And then, as recognition slowly dawned on her face, her expression shifted. It became something cruel, something I remembered all too well. "What is he doing here?" she scoffed, loud enough for half the room to hear. One of my newer employees hesitated, trying to explain. He's. But Emily, she just cut them off, her voice dripping with disdain. "I don't care. Get him out. Now." The entire room went silent. You could feel every single stare, hear the whispers. My pulse quickened, but I forced myself to remain calm. A security guard, clearly uncomfortable, approached me hesitantly. "Sir, she's asking." I just held up a hand. "I know what she's asking." I turned back to Emily. She was watching me, a smug smirk playing on her lips, clearly waiting for me to be escorted out like some lowly intruder at her party. "Emily," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the anger churning inside me. "Do you even know where you are?" She rolled her eyes, obviously annoyed. "Oh, obviously. This is the Sterling Hotel. The nicest place in town. Unlike you, Jake, I have taste." I just smiled. Oh, that smile must have confused her. "And do you know who owns the Sterling Hotel, Emily?" She scoffed again, waving a dismissive hand. "Some rich businessman, obviously. Why would I care?" I didn't have to say a word. One of my employees, who had been standing nearby, cleared their throat, and with an almost gleeful look, they said, Actually, he does." Emily froze. "What?" she managed to gasp out. I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen a few times, and then turned it toward her. There, displayed clearly, was the official hotel website, with my name listed prominently as the owner. Her face drained of all color. That smug smirk? Vanished. The room was utterly silent, every single eye on her as the realization finally sank in. I leaned in just slightly, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Now, do you still want security to throw me out?" Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no words came out. And that, my friend, is when I knew I had her exactly where I wanted her. I let the silence stretch, savoring every single second of that moment. Emily's mouth hung open, her confidence evaporating in real time. Just minutes ago, she had been basking in the glow of her own self-importance, barking orders at my amazing staff, demanding I be tossed out. But she looked like a deer caught in headlights. "Wait," she stammered, shaking her head as if trying to physically reset reality. "You're joking, right? There's no way you own this place." I actually chuckled. A real, genuine chuckle. "I get it, Emily. Must be hard to believe that the cousin you used to mock for being a complete failure now owns the very venue you just spent thousands of dollars to rent out." I folded my arms, tilting my head slightly. "But here we are." Emily glanced around desperately, as if hoping someone, anyone, would tell her this was all some elaborate, twisted prank. The guests were whispering now, exchanging amused glances, and my staff? They stood by, watching, waiting for my next move. I leaned in slightly again, lowering my voice just enough for her to hear my next words. "Now, what was it you told security a minute ago?" "What?" "Throw that nobody out." I let out an exaggerated sigh. "You know, Emily, I think you're right. We should remove people who don't belong here." Her eyes widened in absolute horror. "Wait, no." I turned to the security guard, who had been watching this entire scene unfold, completely poker-faced. "I think she's causing a disturbance," I said, a little too calmly. "Maybe she shouldn't be here after all." The security guard hesitated, looking between us. He knew I was the owner, of course. He knew I probably wasn't entirely serious. But Emily? Oh, she definitely didn't know. Emily's face completely crumbled. "Jake, please," she said, her voice suddenly much softer, almost pleading. "Don't do this." "Not tonight." I raised an eyebrow. "Why not? You were happy to throw me out in front of all these people, weren't you?" Didn't even hesitate. "That was a mistake," she rushed to say, her voice cracking. I didn't know it was you." I feigned a thoughtful expression, tapping my chin. "Oh, I see. So, if I was just some random nobody, it would have been perfectly fine to humiliate me." I let those words sink in before shaking my head slowly. "Wow, Emily. That's a great look for you." Emily swallowed hard, her hands clenching into tight fists at her sides. "Look, Save it," I cut her off, waving a dismissive hand. You've spent your whole life treating me like absolute trash. And now that the tables have completely turned, suddenly you're acting all nice. I let out a mocking laugh that I couldn't hold back. You must really think I'm stupid. Emily's face was bright red now. Whether from anger or embarrassment, I wasn't entirely sure. Probably a healthy mix of both. She glanced at her parents, my aunt and uncle, who had been standing awkwardly nearby this entire time, unsure whether to intervene. But they knew better than to push me now. Jake, please, Emily tried again, this time in a hushed whisper, a desperate plea. This is my birthday. Don't ruin it. I gave her a long, hard, considering look. I'm ruining it? Kind of like how you tried to ruin mine just now. She winced. I was wrong. I admit it. Just please don't make me leave. I tapped my chin again, pretending to think it over, drawing out her agony. Then I finally smirked. Fine. You can stay. Her shoulders sagged in palpable relief. But, I added, my smirk widening, only if you admit, right here in front of everyone, that you were the one who didn't belong here tonight. Emily stiffened. What? You heard me, I said, crossing my arms. Say it. I was wrong, and I didn't belong here tonight. Her eyes darted around the room, taking in all the stares, the hushed murmurs of the guests who had witnessed this whole messy drama. Her pride was clearly battling her survival instinct. I could practically see the war raging inside her head. I leaned in just a little closer. Or, I could just have security escort you out. Your choice. Emily swallowed hard. Her hands trembled slightly as she exhaled, then muttered under her breath. I was wrong and I didn't belong here tonight. Louder, I said, enjoying this way too much. She clenched her jaw, her face a mask of furious humiliation, then forced the words out, just loud enough for the entire room to hear. I was wrong and I didn't belong here tonight. I let the words hang in the air for a moment, savoring the taste of long overdue justice. The room was dead silent, all eyes on Emily as she stood there, humiliated and furious, her face a deep shade of red. I could tell she thought this was over, that she had swallowed just enough of her pride to keep her precious party intact. But she was so wrong. I let out a low chuckle, shaking my head. Wow, Emily, that was actually painful to watch. I sighed dramatically. But you know what? I changed my mind. Emily's head snapped up. What? I turned to the security guard, who was still standing by. Get her out of my hotel. For a moment, Emily just stood there, blinking, like she hadn't actually processed what I'd said. Then she let out a short, nervous laugh. You're joking. I smiled. Nope. The murmurs in the room grew louder. Some guests outright gasped. A few even chuckled. My aunt and uncle looked like they wanted to step in, to save their precious daughter, but they knew they had absolutely no power here. Emily's eyes darted around frantically, her panic finally setting in. Jake, she hissed, lowering her voice, a desperate edge to it. I already apologized. You got your little moment. Just let me stay. I tilted my head, looking at her with an expression I hoped was inscrutable. Oh, you think that was enough? You think a forced little sentence is going to erase years of you treating me like dirt? I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice so only she could hear. Let me make something very clear, Emily. You don't get to talk your way out of this. You wanted me gone from this party. Well, guess what? Now it's your turn. She took a shaky step back, her confidence completely shattered. Please, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Don't do this. This party? This party is over for you. I motioned to the security guard. Escort her out now. The guard stepped forward, towering over her. Ma'am, I need you to come with me. Emily looked around, desperate for someone, anyone, to step in. Mom. Dad. My aunt opened her mouth, but my uncle put a firm hand on her arm. He wasn't stupid. He knew pushing me further would only make things so much worse. Emily turned back to me, her voice breaking, tears starting to well up in her eyes. Jake, please. Save it, I cut her off. I've spent my whole life listening to you talk down to me. I'm done listening. The security guard took her arm. Not roughly but firmly. Let's go. Emily let out a choked sound, a mix of outrage and despair. You can't do this. This is my birthday. I just smirked. And this is my hotel. With that, the guard led her toward the exit. She fought him every step, turning back one last time, her face contorted in a furious snarl. You'll regret this, Jake. I swear you'll regret this. I just smiled back. Goodbye, Emily. The door slammed shut behind her, and a strange wave of quiet settled over the room. It was a bizarre kind of silence, filled with disbelief, but also, surprisingly, a huge sense of relief. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the family's punching bag. As the minutes ticked by, people began murmuring amongst themselves, but no one really knew what to say. Some of the guests looked deeply uncomfortable, unsure whether to leave or stay after such an abrupt disruption. A few had been genuinely friendly with Emily and seemed truly shocked by what had just happened, while others seemed to instinctively understand that something fundamental had shifted. And then, one by one, Emily's friends started filtering out of the hotel, no doubt following her lead. They were quick to gather their things and murmur amongst themselves, throwing accusatory glances my way as they filed out. I wasn't surprised, though. Emily always had a way of rallying people to her side, even when she was clearly in the wrong. Once the last of her entourage left, I let out a breath I didn't even realize I'd been holding. Aunt Marie, who had been standing quietly in the corner this whole time, finally spoke up, her voice soft, but filled with an edge of concern. Jake, are you sure about this? Emily, she's your cousin. This is going to tear the family apart. I gave her a look, a mix of exasperation and calm resignation. She's the one who tore it apart, Aunt Marie. Not me. She opened her mouth as if to argue, but then closed it, realizing there was no changing my mind. I'm not sure I've ever seen you this. She trailed off, not knowing exactly how to finish the sentence. Angry? I asked, leaning back against the bar, a wry smile touching my lips. Yeah, well, there's a first time for everything. Aunt Marie nodded slowly, clearly still processing the chaos. Just be careful, okay? Don't worry, Aunt Marie, I assured her. I'm done being the nice guy. And that was the absolute truth of it. Emily had pushed me to my breaking point, and I wasn't about to back down now. Not for anyone. That night, after everyone had left and the silence of the hotel was finally settling in, I went back to my office. I needed to catch up on some emails, but mostly, I just needed to clear my head. I figured that would be the end of it. Emily would sulk, maybe complain to a few people, but that would be the extent of her revenge. Oh, how wrong I was. It was around midnight when I heard the buzz of my phone vibrating on my desk. At first, I thought it was just another email, but when I looked, my screen was a flood of notifications from Instagram and Twitter. Confused, I tapped the screen, wondering what on earth was going on. It didn't take long to figure it out. Emily had posted a series of rants, both on her Instagram story and her Twitter feed, painting me as the absolute villain of the night. She'd made sure to include a lot of dramatic photos too. Like her standing dramatically by the exit with her arms crossed, a shot of her with tear-streaked makeup, looking utterly distraught. Her caption read, "Jake kicked me out of my own birthday party at his hotel because I called him a loser in front of all my friends. Can you believe this? Family, huh?" Face with tears of joy, and then that laughing emoji, like she was trying to lighten the mood while simultaneously twisting the knife. I scrolled through the messages, and a pattern quickly emerged. Her friends were rallying behind her, leaving comments like, "So petty. Jake's a joke. And he's clearly jealous you're successful." That's so messed up. Some of them even tagged the hotel's account, demanding that I be fired for ruining the event. My heart sank a little. Seeing all that anger and blind support from people who had no idea of the full story, it stung deeply. Emily was a master at manipulation. She'd been playing the victim for years, and now she was spinning this into some twisted narrative where she was the wronged party. I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I took a deep breath and just shut my phone down for a while. I needed some space to process. It wasn't like I hadn't seen this coming, though. Emily had always had a knack for turning situations around to her advantage. But this felt like a whole new level of betrayal. Still, I wasn't worried. I knew the truth. And I also knew something Emily didn't. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next day, things only got worse. I went to check my social media, foolishly thinking the whole thing would have blown over by then. But it had only escalated, dramatically. Emily's posts had gone viral among her friend group, and now people from the extended family, who hadn't even been at the party, were chiming in. They were accusing me of ruining family traditions, of humiliating my own cousin for no reason, of being cruel. Some of them sent me private messages, most of them dripping with a judgmental tone I hadn't expected. One message, from Aunt Linda, cut particularly deep. "Jake, I can't believe you would stoop so low. Emily is family, and no matter how much she gets on your nerves, you don't treat family like that. I'm so disappointed in you. Everyone's talking about it. You need to fix this." I stared at that message for a long, quiet moment, the anger simmering inside me, threatening to boil over again. How had it come to this? How had I become the villain in all of this? Emily had humiliated me for years. It wasn't just the party, it was everything that had come before. The way she'd belittled me, the way she'd ignored my accomplishments, the way she'd treated my efforts like they were nothing. But in this moment, a cold resolve settled over me. I knew the only way to put an end to it was to expose her. That night, I posted something of my own. I took screenshots of Emily's most egregious posts and carefully crafted my own message. It read, "To everyone who thinks they know what happened last night, here's the truth. Emily has spent years making me the scapegoat for everything that went wrong in her life. She's publicly humiliated me for fun. And when I finally stood up for myself, this is the result. I'm not sorry for what happened. I've spent too long being the quiet one. The one who always takes the back seat in the family. It's time for that to stop. If you don't like it, well, tough luck. I'm done being her punching bag." I posted it and sat back, waiting. I didn't have to wait long for the storm to hit. At first, it was just a trickle. Small comments here and there, some likes, some shares. Then the real waves began. Emily's side of the family and her friends flooded my notifications, some agreeing with me, but most calling me every name under the sun. My phone buzzed incessantly as more and more people from the family piled on. I could see it now, the full, ugly scope of what was happening. Emily had spun her narrative so well that even my own relatives, some who I had considered close, were blindly on her side. One message from my Uncle Roger hit particularly hard. "I can't believe you would air our dirty laundry like this. Emily is just trying to make sense of everything, and you're out here trying to ruin her reputation. She's family, Jake, and family supports each other. You're a disgrace." That one stung deeply. I had always looked up to Uncle Roger. To hear him turn on me like this, without even trying to understand my side, it left a really sour taste in my mouth. It felt like no matter how hard I tried to make things right, it wasn't going to matter. But as the night wore on, I kept seeing something interesting. As I scrolled through the comments, I started noticing that Emily's story didn't quite hold up for everyone. Some people were asking questions, real questions. Why didn't Emily apologize if she was in the wrong? One comment asked. Another said, why does Emily always play the victim in every situation? Does she really think we don't see through it? Those comments were like a small crack in a dam. People were starting to see her for what she really was. Someone who could manipulate a situation to her benefit without any regard for who she stepped on. Then came the first big shift. My cousin Megan, who had been Emily's best friend since childhood, publicly commented on my post. I held my breath, wondering what she'd say. Megan had always been a little more level-headed, a little more grounded than the rest of them. Her comment was simple, but it hit like a ton of bricks. Jake didn't deserve what happened. I don't care what anyone says. I've seen this happen too many times. Emily has always been like this, and it's time people knew. It was like a spark had lit a fire. Megan's post started getting shared, and soon more and more family members and friends began posting their own stories, their own truths. Some people shared how Emily had manipulated them in the past, how she'd stolen attention from other people's milestones, how she'd consistently put others down to make herself look better. At that point, I knew there was no going back for Emily. The truth was out. And it was ugly. The next day, the fallout just continued. My phone had been blowing up nonstop. But this time, it wasn't just angry messages. Some of my own friends had seen the posts and shared them with me, sending screenshots of how Emily's carefully constructed reputation was quickly crumbling around her. "This is some drama I can't miss," one text read from my college buddy Mark. "You're trending, man." My heart pounded as I watched the narrative completely shift. The more Emily tried to control the story, the more her lies unraveled. People started questioning her, really questioning her, and in doing so, they realized that they had been manipulated all along. The true turning point came when Emily's own mother, Aunt Linda, sent me a message. She'd been one of the biggest supporters of Emily's side throughout this whole mess, remember? But now, she was apologizing. "Jake, I'm so sorry. I didn't see what was happening until I saw everything unfold. I didn't want to believe it, but you're right. Emily has a habit of turning everything on others. I was wrong to defend her without knowing the whole story. Please, can we talk?" I stared at the message, my mind racing. For the first time in years, Aunt Linda was admitting that Emily had manipulated her too. That was a huge step, an almost unbelievable one. But I wasn't ready to talk to her just yet. Not after everything that had happened. I'd spent so long watching Emily walk all over me while the rest of the family either ignored it or stood by. I wasn't going to let them off that easy. The days that followed were a whirlwind. The fallout from the party and my post continued to ripple through our entire family. Emily tried desperately to backtrack, claiming I was attacking her and ruining her life with lies. But by now, her own posts were turning against her. The pictures she'd shared of herself looking like the victim no longer had the effect she wanted. Instead, people were commenting on her constant, desperate need for attention, her absolute refusal to take accountability, and her inability to respect even basic boundaries. Finally, Emily called me. It was late in the evening, and I had been sitting at my desk, still scrolling through all the messages, trying to process everything that had happened. I wasn't sure what I was expecting when I picked up, but it definitely wasn't the desperate, shaky voice of my cousin on the other end. "Jake," she began, and I could hear the exhaustion, the complete defeat in her voice. "I didn't mean for all this to happen. Please, just let me fix this. I'll do anything." I leaned back in my chair, my fingers gripping the armrest as I fought, truly fought, to keep my composure. "Fix it? After everything you've done? After what you put me through?" She stammered, her voice cracking now, tears audible. "I'm sorry, okay? I didn't think it would go this far. I was just mad and I didn't know what else to do. Please don't do this, Jake. Don't ruin my life." I paused, a wave of complex emotions rising in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. "You've been ruining my life for years, Emily. You've treated me like dirt for far too long. Maybe if you'd stopped for a second and actually listened to me, this wouldn't have happened." She was silent for a long, agonizing time. And when she spoke again, it wasn't with the same arrogant confidence she'd had before. It was small, broken. I just wanted everyone to see me the way I saw myself. I didn't want to be the only one left behind. I don't know how to fix this. The silence hung heavy in the air, and I knew in that moment that Emily would never truly understand the depth of what she'd done, the years of damage. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady myself, trying to find the right words. I don't want to talk to you right now. I need time. And maybe, just maybe, you'll finally realize that you can't keep acting like this and just getting away with it. I hung up the phone. And in that moment, for the very first time, I finally felt the immense weight of everything lift, just a little bit. The next few weeks were, predictably, filled with awkward family gatherings and tense conversations. But the one thing that was absolutely clear was that Emily's grip on the family, her ability to manipulate and control, was weakening. More and more people began to see her for who she really was. And let me tell you, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't just a victory for me. It was a victory for everyone who had been too afraid to speak up, for everyone she had ever stepped on. And while I wasn't sure what the future held for me and Emily, I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't be letting her back into my life, not really, until she could truly, genuinely change. For now, I was going to savor the silence, the quiet calm that had finally come after such a long, turbulent storm. Because in the end, it wasn't about winning some petty argument. It was about finally, truly standing up for myself for the first time in a very, very long time. And you know what? That was more than enough.